Welcome into the Moi Ploy Boys Dynasty Podcast, the greatest podcast that you didn't want or ask for. And now introducing your hosts, Jake the Gluten-Free Harris and Peter Cheater Pigoo Hot Sizzle O'Donnell.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men who act like children of all ages, it's the Mock Draft 2.0. So what I have done is I've gone through and I have put together a NFL mock draft on Mock Draft Database. I have made this specifically for the purpose of this rookie draft. The way it was done is I controlled a couple of teams that I thought had interesting situations. And then I basically just played GM with those, let the computer draft the rest, and saw where everything shook out. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. I'm just going to scroll down really slowly so that you guys can kind of see. You can pause if you want to here or there. Kind of see how everything shook out in this draft. As the players get selected, I'm going to let you know where they go. There were a couple interesting landing spots here at the back of the second. Jonathan Mingo to the Chiefs I thought was interesting. Sam Laporta to the Chargers as well as interesting. There was Roschon Johnson in the third to Tampa was really cool. Eric Gray in the third to the Bills is especially cool. And then if there was one more, Israel Abanikanda to the Bears at the back end, or I guess technically the beginning of the fourth, is also really, really great. Yeah, I did all 7 rounds. It was a chore to get all this done. Zach Kuntz to the Chiefs is really interesting. Chase Brown to the Chargers, very interesting. Sean Tucker also to the Chiefs, very interesting. I went ahead and basically just made some picks that I thought would make sense for these teams. You know, the Chiefs need a pass-catching running back. Sean Tucker kind of fits that bill in that range of the draft. Not that I expect Chiefs, especially I don't especially expect the Chiefs to go tight end in the fourth, but this mock draft simulator really wanted me to do it. And of course, now that I've started this video, my babies are waking up. So really quick, I'm just going to share with you guys. It's kind of how everything went. And I think this mock draft gives a lot more life to these mid and later round picks. So here's the board as it stands now. We've got Bijan, who I believe went to... he went somewhere. Oh, he went to Dallas. Bijan to Dallas. Anthony Richardson ended up being the number 1 overall pick as selected by the computer. So I took him at the 102. Then comes Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, but they go in inverse orders how they went in the NFL draft. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, I think, has the better landing spot in Indianapolis. Bryce Young gets Houston. Jackson Smith and Jigma lands in Houston alongside Bryce Young. And then Jordan Addison, I had him going to the Chargers in this mock. So he would make a really interesting pick to go here with Jordan. Jahmyr Gibbs to the Rams at the early second round pick. I could not pass up, so I had to grab him there. Zach Charbonnet, middle of the second to the Dolphins, goes to Jim. Will Levis goes number 11 overall to the Titans, who I do believe could use a quarterback, and this is a great situation for Levis. Not that he's surrounded by talent. Honestly, the team's pretty devoid of it at the moment, but he gets to sit behind Ryan Tannehill, and the team gets to buy time for them to surround Levis with talent. Then Quentin Johnston goes 15 to the Packers, so you kind of have to take him there. I don't know how I feel about Johnston, but with that sort of draft capital, it's hard not to like him. Michael Mayer ends up going the second tight end off the board behind Dalton Kincaid. He actually goes with the first pick of the second round to the Houston Texans, and I think that's a really interesting landing spot. I like it a lot. Hendon Hooker goes to the Raiders, early second-round pick. I don't see Rich being able to pass on that sort of draft capital. Zay Flowers goes to the Ravens. Great talent, good draft capital, horrid landing spot, though. I don't think that Pigu, he might go Mingo over Flowers, but I think Peter would probably end up going Flowers. You follow the talent, you follow the draft capital. I feel like the Chiefs' landing spot for wide receivers is honestly a little bit of a bait at this point because they seem to just kind of be like a wide receiver by committee, unless one of these guys develops into a superstar, and we haven't seen that from any of their guys. Jalen Hyatt goes to the Giants in the back end of the first. Great situation. There's not a ton of target competition out there in New Jersey, the New Jersey Giants. Jonathan Mingo to the Chiefs. Again, there's a very good chance that he goes several picks higher because basically Sky Moore was in the exact same situation last year, and he went right around in this area there weren't as many QBs pushing that down the board so far, nor were there any tight ends that were really, really appealing last year. Eric Gray in the third round to the Bills honestly is probably a better pick than Jonathan Mingo to the Chiefs here. Israel Abanikanda back of the third to the Bears. Josh Downs, I think, goes early second round to the Seahawks. Sean Tucker, again, this is Tom's pick, and I think Sean Tucker back of the fourth to the Chiefs makes a lot of sense. Roshan Johnson, middle of the third to Tampa Bay. Chase Brown, middle of the fourth to the Chargers. Rashee Rice, I think, went to the Bears? Where did Rashee Rice go to? No, that was Cedric Tillman that went to the Bears. I don't remember where Rice ended up at. But I think this is where things really start to get interesting because there's a lot of good tight ends left. I feel like there is Luke Musgrave, ended up going to the Washington Redskins, the Commanders, and the early or middle second. I think that's great draft capital for him. I think Zach Evans going to the early fourth round New Orleans Saints is really interesting. Devin A-Chain going very early third to the Cardinals, also interesting spot. Then you've got guys like Cedric Tillman going early second to the Bears, or kind of middle second to the Bears. There's just a lot of really interesting things in this draft, like Sam Laporta to the Chargers. So you see, once we actually have some true landing spots, and I think you see kind of more of like not just the first 4 rounds. I really don't think so many running backs are going to get dropped to the 5th round. I feel like they're going to start to go in the 4th, especially this year. I think this mock draft is probably a little bit more likely to happen than the other one that we did. And you'll see it makes it much more interesting to go later into the draft. Other second round receivers that are still on the board. Cedric Tillman just went. Josh Downs, we already did him. Sam Laporta. Okay, so there's no more second round talent on the board, except for Darnell Washington, who also goes in the second. But I don't expect Darnell Washington to the Lions to excite a ton of people. So I don't think that's going to... maybe 4th round pick or something. He's athletically freaky, but, whatever. I think another interesting are some of the 3rd round wide receivers. Parker Washington to the New Orleans Saints with the early 3rd round. Marvin Mims to the Titans with their early 3rd round. Another 2 interesting guys. If I had to go here, though, I'm probably looking running back. I'm not super high on 3rd round wide receivers. I'd much rather give a 4th round running back a shot. So let's see who the next running back up is. Dwayne McBride and Tajay Spears both go early 4th Tajay goes to the Falcons. Dwayne McBride goes to the Browns. So I think that would be two very interesting. I mean, Nick Chubb won't be there forever, and if Nick Chubb gets injured, as he's been prone to do, next up is there. Zach Evans, or I already talked about Zach Evans. Tank Bigsby ends up going to the Ravens with the mid-4th. I think that's a great spot for him to be. Next up, I think would probably be a guy like, did we already do Chase Brown? Chase Brown, yeah, we did. Chase Brown ended up going to the Chargers with their mid-4th. That landing spot definitely bumped him up a little bit. Kendre Miller is still on the board. He went to the Colts in the early 5th, so that's not super exciting. At this point, I'm not really interested in any of these receivers left on the board, but so I think we'll probably see like a Dalton Kincaid go. We'll probably like a Zach Kuntz. The Chiefs landing spot's just too juicy, even though it's not good draft capital. I cannot find Rashee Rice, but I feel like at this point, some of these other guys got to start going. Marvin Mims, Rashee Rice. Oops, that actually makes sense. Darnell Washington. There was another really interesting late round selection that happened. Oh yeah, Evan Hull goes in the late 5th to the Texans, and I think that's an interesting spot for him to go. Could end up in a bit of a... Where's Evan Hull? Yeah. Could be an interesting timeshare. There's not a lot of competition besides Dameon Pierce. I think the next one that would probably... The next running back that would probably go would be Deneric Prince, who goes in the 6th round, I believe, to the New York Giants. No, he goes one pick ahead of Evan Hull in the 5th. Okay, to the New York Giants, yeah. So, yeah, I definitely see those two guys going there. And then, Kendre's still a 5th-round running back, so I take him over some of these 6th and 7th-round guys. Some late landing spots that I thought were interesting, and we'll round out this draft. Chris Rodriguez to the Titans. Mohamed Ibrahim. This is all in the 6th round here. Mohamed Ibrahim to the Rams. Hunter Lupke to the Broncos. And again, I'm really not looking at wide receivers in this range. Those are mostly going to be special teamers and role players at best. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 in this range that end up breaking out. Those will generally be identifiable by just lack of competition in basically an ascendable depth chart ahead of them. 7th round running backs with good landing spots. There's not really anyone I'm super excited about down here. Cameron Peoples goes to the Chiefs. Again, I feel like the Chiefs would just be doing that for a depth pick because they took an earlier running back with Sean Tucker, and I think they do like Isaiah Pacheco, and will give him the lead role for at least this next year again. And that was everything. So yeah, basically we'd just be grabbing these, probably some of these wide receivers. Tyler Scott, these 3rd-round wide receivers would probably start going here. And yeah, that's likely how it... I mean, there's still some, even in the free agency, there's still guys like A.T. Perry went in like the 3rd or 4th round to the Falcons. Mohamed Ibrahim, we talked about where he went. Xavier Hutchinson went in the 5th to the Titans. That's a very ascendable depth chart. So yeah, it's an interesting spot The babies stayed asleep, by the way. I'm not just ignoring them. There's a lot of interesting spots here. I really don't want to talk too much as I like the sound of my own voice, because my canker sore right here is killing me. Just talking hurts real bad. So I thought this was an interesting mock draft. To kind of see, I focused less on team needs. I did a little bit, but this time around I focused much more on landing spots and the value of those teams kind of basically more value focused and perception of value focused than actual fit within our dynasty rosters. That said, I do think a lot of needs are going to get addressed by the teams with picks, and I do think if the draft shook out a bit more like this, it's going to be a much more middle and late round friendly draft than the dynasty community seems to be thinking at the moment. I feel like the dynasty community is really looking for kind of like this. Everyone thought 2023 was just going to be so stacked. And then when it turns out, oh, there's only really like 2 wide receivers that are really going to be worth anything, Addison and Njigba. There's only really going to be like 2 big name running backs, Robinson and Gibbs. Like Tank Bigsby fell off the map. Zach Charbonnet is fine. Sean Tucker wasn't really everything he was supposed to be. Zach Evans wasn't really everything he was supposed to be. Just a lot of those, like, there's a big clump of running backs everyone was excited about. And then no one really realized till the process began, people started to actually look at some of these prospects that were coming out, that the wide receiver pool is pretty shallow. And I think that our rookie draft is going to reflect that. I don't expect a ton of wide receivers to get taken. Last year, a hit rate on the 3rd round and later wide receivers was extremely low. Even the one, like, 4th round wide receiver that was a hit, Romeo Doubs, like, you got a couple startable weeks out of him, and then he just kind of baited you into starting him for a few more weeks, and then he just wasn't really anything. And I would expect him to lose his role by this time next year, for him to just be a bench player. So I'm really not interested in those later round wide receivers. Very few of them ever break out. So I think this is a good draft to stock up on running backs and tight ends and attack the draft that way. Definitely Tucker Kraft had some good draft capital and decent landing spots, so he should have gone somewhere in here before any of these guys probably. But yep, so that's kind of how I see the draft. Not necessarily the names specifically, but more kind of the shape. Like, this team is going this position in this part of the draft. I think I made a few reaches. I don't expect the Chiefs to go so many offensive players. I think they went like offense 2, 3, and 4. I don't really expect the Rams to go with a running back with their early 2nd round pick. I would expect them to more grab one in the 4th or 5th, but it felt like a thought experiment that needed to happen, like a what if. Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs and a Sean McVay offense. Oh, whoa. That could be really exciting. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the little thought experiment. I had fun doing it. I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.